Okay, let's get started. So, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. I'm Jason Fitzgerald, VP of Product and Support for Blustream here in the US, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes to join this short session on our new range of smart managed PDUs or power distribution units. Now, a quick note to our US audience. I want to thank you for your patience while other regions ran this earlier in the month, but we've been heads down building out the US market, and I've been on the road quite a bit. So thanks for being able to join us, even though it's a little bit later than our other regions. Now, for today's webinar, your microphone's, of course, going to be muted to keep things clear. And if a question pops up, use the chat or Q&A in Teams at any time. And we'll have someone on board there to address those questions live. And of course, anything we don't cover in that moment, we'll wrap up in the Q&A at the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Well, first, let's talk about why you use a PDU. So in modern AV, we're powering displays, processors, switches, amps, and control, often in the same rack, right? So a smart managed PDU centralizes that power so that the install is cleaner and the layout is simpler and management is predictable. So first, of course, there's protection. Now, Blustream PDUs add surge suppression and filtering to help shield sensitive gear from spikes and noise that can cause instability or long-term damage. Second, control. Because they're IP managed, you can see real-time status, cycle a locked-up device, or sync with a full rack remotely. So that's no truck roll required, right? So sequenced power up and power down also prevent inrush current that can trip breakers or stress amplifiers. Third is visibility. With built-in energy monitoring, you can track usage by outlet or by circuit. Now that makes troubleshooting faster and helps plan capacity and efficiency over time. And finally, there's integration. And our PDUs tie into control systems and schedules, so power events become part of your macros, morning startup, after hours shutdown, or automated recovery, right? Blustream Smart PDUs give integrators centralized management, protection, and actionable insight, so systems can run reliably, safely, and efficiently across boardrooms, venues, broadcast spaces, and residential theaters, right? That's smart power management. So since launching our managed PDUs, we've heard the question, why is Blustream moving into power management? Now, there are two very clear reasons. Now, the first, it's a natural extension of what we already do, right? We're an AV signal distribution company. Every day we manage video, audio, USB, and control reliably across complex systems. Now, applying that same discipline, deterministic behavior, clean topologies, simple APIs, to power isn't a leap. It's the next logical step, right? Power is just another critical layer that needs to be orchestrated within the rest of the system. And second, our integration partners asked for it, right? So you've told us our products perform, our API is straightforward, and our support is responsive. You also wanted the same Blustream balance of features and values in a PDU, remote control and monitoring, sequencing, and telemetry without blowing the budget. That combination helps you engineer cost-effective, supportable solutions. So, as a forward-thinking manufacturing, expanding into smart power keeps us growing and lets us offer a more integrated, future-ready portfolio for your installs. With that context, let's go ahead and dive into the new PDU lineup. Now, before we jump into the hardware, a quick note on philosophy. Wherever possible, we standardize features across the Blustream PDU range. Now that means when you specify one of our units, you can trust a consistent capability set, making design, quoting, and support much simpler. Across our 3 managed PDUs released over the past year, you'll see the same core toolkit. First, visibility and control at the outlet level. Per outlet metering for voltage, current, power, and energy, plus the ability to individually reboot devices remotely. Next, protection. Surge and overload protection with interference filtering to help keep sensitive AV gear stable. For automation, you get 24/7 scheduling and per outlet sequencing, so you can stage power up and power down safely, avoid inrush issues, and align with your daily macros. Control's flexible, right? IP, serial, front panel, and even per outlet relays or triggers for integration with other systems. Networking is resilient thanks to dual network ports and SSL secured access. Remote monitoring is built in via the web-GUI with password authentication, and you can have email alerts sent for error conditions to the addresses of your choice. Finally, we speak your language on the network. SNMP, Telnet, MQTT, SSH, and Modbus are supported for broad integration with control platforms and IoT tooling. So the bottom line is really a common feature set across the family, which means you can choose the form factor and the outlet count without losing the capabilities your team relies on. Now, let's take a look at the hardware. Let's start with the PWR4 IEC, our compact managed PDU designed for smaller AV and data racks. It delivers power where you need it without wasting rack space. Electrically, it uses a C14 inlet supporting 110 to 250 volts up to 10 amps. Now, this is feeding 4 IEC C13 outlets, which is, of course, ideal for higher draw AV devices like network switches, video processors, audio gear, and control systems. The half-rack 1U form factor keeps layouts tidy, and we include rack mount wings so you can drop it straight into a build. Control and management are flexible. You get IP control with dual network ports for redundancy, serial for direct API integration, and front panel buttons for quick local operation. If the rack is user accessible, those buttons can be disabled to prevent accidental power cycles. For hardware level control, there are 5 triggers, 1 per outlet, and a master trigger to cut power to all outlets simultaneously. Just like the rest of the family, power sequencing is built in. You can set the order and delay per outlet so gear powers up and down safely, which reduces inrush current, protecting amplifiers and supplies, and keeps the system stable. That means fewer nuisance breaker trips and smoother recovery after outages or updates. In short, the PWR4 IEC brings managed per outlet control and sequence power to compact racks, clean installs, safer startups, and less on-site troubleshooting. Next up, we have the PWR8 IEC, the 8-way IEC version that builds on the same core feature set as the 4-way, but adds capacity and sensor-driven automation. So electrically, you get a C20 inlet rated to 16 amps at 110 to 250 volts, feeding 8 managed IEC C13 outlets. Plus, you get a constant, non-switched outlet on the front panel for gear that has to stay powered. So think service laptops, test tools, or a monitoring device. An LED display gives clear, at-a-glance system info for quick checks in the rack. Where this unit really expands its capability is environmental and security awareness. It includes dual sensor RJ45 ports that accept multi-format third-party sensors. So those can be temperature, humidity, air pressure, door tilt, PIR, and more. For each outlet, you can define what should happen when a threshold is crossed. Either that's no action, power on, power off, or restart. And you choose the logic. So that's no trigger, a minimum threshold or maximum threshold, or min or max, perfect for automating cooling fans, shedding non-critical loads, or rebooting a misbehaving device when environmental conditions stabilize. So, in day-to-day use, the PWR8 IEC gives you higher outlet density, live visibility, and policy-based responses tied to the rack's real conditions, which of course then reduces truck rolls, protects equipment, and keeps the system stable. It's smart management with sensor-aware control baked in. Okay, so quick reality check. How many racks have you opened up to find a tangle of power bars stuffed with wall warts and extension leads like this? And how many times has a little plug top transformer gone pop after a surge or outage, right? Taking a key device down with it. On top of that, we're often asked to reboot individual devices, schedule their on and off times, or see exactly what they're drawing, yet most racks don't offer that level of control for low voltage equipment. Now that gap is exactly where our new low voltage PDU fits. Instead of scattering supplies and guesswork, you get a single, organized hub for small device power and per device management. The goals here are simple. Cleaner installs, so no more wall wart jungle, better airflow, and it's easier to service. You've got better resilience, so protection and orderly sequenced recovery after outages, and smarter operations, so we can do things like remote reboots, scheduling for off hours, and visibility into consumption so you can diagnose issues quickly and plan capacity. In short, we're bringing the same control and insight you expect for high draw gear to the low voltage side of the rack. So your switches, extenders, control processors, and sensors stay reliable, manageable, and supportable. Now, this is where the Blustream's low voltage PDU comes into its own. And this is, of course, the PWR8 VDC, our low voltage managed PDU designed to get rid of wall warts from the back and bottom of your racks. You get 8 independent low voltage outputs, each on Phoenix connectors, plus 8 5-volt USB ports. For USB, 4 ports deliver 1 amp for higher draw peripherals, and 4 deliver half an amp for lighter loads. Great for powering small control devices, sensors, or accessories without separate adapters. Now, each Phoenix output is selectable per channel, so we can do 5, 9, 12, 18, or 24 volts, and you can then trim that in 0.1 volt for edge cases. So if you need 19 volts, you can just take the 18 volt setting and nudge it up by 1 volt, and we get 19. We built the range to match what most Blustream and third-party AV devices require. So that's really up to 24 volts. And this will include things like HDBaseT and USB extenders, audio extenders, switchers, splitters, and signal management gear. Functionally, it carries the same feature set as our AC PDUs: per output monitoring, remote management, role-based security, and 24/7 scheduling with sequencing, so you can stage startups, automate off-hour shutdowns, and remotely reboot individual devices without rolling a truck. Now here, let's go ahead and take a look at the dashboard of the GUI, and it's the main control page, which will give us quick configuration and monitoring. Across the top bar, you get master power control. So you get a global on and off, plus live system metrics. That's total current, total power, overall voltage, total energy consumed, the power factor, and line frequency. If you want a fresh baseline for commissioning or troubleshooting, you can reset the overall power data with a single click. Below that is the per outlet panel. Now, each outlet can be named for clarity, switched on or off individually, and on the low voltage unit, have its voltage set per channel. You can also reset that outlet's power counters independently, which is great for in-depth monitoring. For example, zero out the counters before a firmware update or after a device swap to see precise consumption and inrush. Every outlet also shows its own metering, so you can spot abnormal draw at a glance. And for visual hygiene in the rack UI, you can upload a custom PNG icon to represent each outlet. There are 3 icon states: idle, connected, and warning, and the UI will auto-update the graphic based on the status. So in short, the dashboard gives you global awareness and granular control in one place. Resettable totals for clean benchmarks, per outlet switching and metering for diagnostics, and customizable visuals so techs know exactly what they're looking at. Diving a little bit deeper into the outlet configuration, here really is where you'll tailor device behavior or per device behavior. First, of course, is naming, where you want to label each outlet so the UI reads like your rack list. So switch 1, DSP, Shield Pro, and so on. And that, of course, is going to make remote support faster and removes guesswork. Next, of course, is sequencing or delays, and you can define the power on and repower delays between outlets. Now, that'll help prevent inrush issues and ensure upstream gear like switches and controllers comes online before dependent endpoints. For the low voltage model, you'll also choose a DC voltage per outlet, and that's available through presets which cover common AV needs, and you can fine tune that with, of course, like I mentioned, plus 1 volt offset. In the example shown, the NVIDIA Shield Pro calls for 19 volts, and so here we select 18 volts and apply a plus 1 volt offset to hit exactly 19 volts. So that means, of course, no external brick is going to be required. You can also set the power meter reset duration at the outlet level. Now that's handy when you want clean counters before a change, say after a device swap or firmware update, so any spike or abnormal draw is easy to spot. Now, the networking page here goes deeper than many of our other UIs because power control has to be rock solid on your network. Here you can configure each Ethernet port independently. So ports 1 and port 2 can have their own addressing and behavior. Now that's useful for segmented networks, service access, or simple resilience. Right, we support both IPv4 and IPv6, and if you want it turnkey, use DHCP. And if you need deterministic behavior, set static addressing with your preferred gateway and DNS. The goal here is just to make the PDU a predictable citizen on any enterprise or venue network. You'll also find security controls consolidated here. That's where you'll tighten access, enforce authenticated logins, enable encrypted sessions, and decide which management protocols you want to expose to your control system stack. Keep those options on one page, makes commissioning faster and audits simpler. So here, the networking page gives you granular per port control, dual stack IP configurations, and centralized security. So your PDUs integrate cleanly, survive topology changes, and stay locked down in production. Here we're looking at scheduling, and scheduling lets you automate power at the outlet level, so devices only run where needed. Now this interface is a 7-day grid, so you pick a device from the drop-down at the top left, then add 1 or more time windows per day. Now here's a practical example using an HDBaseT extender 1, so that's of course on our PDU here. For Monday through Friday, it's set to turn on at 7:40 a.m. and then off at 6 o'clock p.m. So a clean workday pattern. Now on Saturday, we've added 2 windows. That's 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. for daytime use, and then 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. for evening events. Sunday's unchecked, which means no schedule applies, and the outlet remains off from 10 p.m. Saturday and won't power back on until the next scheduled time, Monday at 7:40 a.m. Now, this approach reduces unnecessary runtime, so it lowers heat and wear and gives you predictable startup and shutdown behavior access across the week. And because it's per outlet, you can tailor hours for extenders, amplifiers, signage, and control gear independently, which makes it perfect for venues with different weekday and weekend patterns. So of course here you're going to set it once and your PDU will execute it reliably every week. Now here is the protocols page, and here is where you integrate the PWR series with third-party systems. Think BMS or monitoring or AV control. Each interface has its own tab and its own credentials, so you can turn on only what the project needs. So for example, on the SNMP tab shown here, you can enable V1 or V2 for quick get or set with public-private communities, or step up to SNMP version 3 with usernames plus authentication and privacy algorithms for secure polling and control. You can also configure traps so the PDU proactively reports events to your NMS. Right now, flip to the telnet for simple command response control on legacy processors, or SSH when you want an encrypted session with key or password authentication. With things like MQTT, you can point the unit at your broker, authenticate, and publish outlet states and power metrics to topics your automation already consumes. And Modbus gives you a field-proven path for industrial controllers to read values or drive outlet actions. Now, what's the best practice here? Enable only the protocols you'll use, set strong credentials, and document which OIDs, topics, and registers your system expects. Here we've got granular protocol setup, which means the PDU drops cleanly into enterprise IT or traditional AV control without middleware, and you keep the surface area small and secure. And we've also added this, and this is it's the emails tab, and this is really your out-of-band notification center, right? Or here you can enable event alerts so the PDU emails your team when an outlet hits a warning state or when there's a power loss event. You can address message to up to 3 recipients, keeping the right people in the loop without a control system in place, right? If you want a heartbeat, turn on the daily system report and set the send time. And that'll give you a consistent snapshot of system health every day. Setup's pretty straightforward. You're going to enter your SMTP mail server details, choose the from name address that you want to appear, and send a test email to even verify delivery. You can also customize the email subject so alerts map cleanly into ticketing or filters. Right? Here, targeted event alerts plus an optional daily digest give you proactive visibility. Fewer surprises, faster response, and better documentation across your installs. Now here, it's important to note that reliable timekeeping is critical for smart power. So every Blustream PDU lets you set the clock manually or sync to a selectable NTP server, your enterprise NTP, a local controller, or a public source. Each unit also includes an internal battery-backed clock, so if the rack loses mains power, your time, date, and schedule integrity are pretty much preserved. So why does this matter? Well, accurate time means schedules fire exactly when they should, event logs are trustworthy for diagnostics and audits, and sequence startups resume in the right order after an outage without you having to reconfigure anything. In short, manual or NTP time sync plus battery backup keeps automations predictable, logs credible, and recovery pretty smooth, right? Even when the lights do go out, and they do go out on occasion. Here, the Systems tabs is where you decide how the PDU behaves day to day and how much control the local rack has. First, the front panel lock. If your rack is in a shared space, you can disable the buttons to prevent accidental power cycles while still allowing remote and API control. Next, we have relay settings. Here, you define how the per outlet relays and any master relay should act. Now, that's great for tying power events to contact closures or external triggers, and you can map relays to specific outlets, group actions, or safety interlocks. You also can control the dashboard experience, so you can pick which system metrics, so that's current, power, voltage, energy, power factor, and frequency, are visible so techs can see exactly what matters for that site, nothing more or nothing less. And finally, outlet settings. Establish defaults for names, startup states, and sequencing, and configure overload processing So basically, what the unit should do if a channel exceeds limits. Options might include warning only, timed retry, or an automatic shutoff to protect connected gear. In short, the system tabs give you the keys to lock down the front panel, standardize relays, declutter the UI, and enforce safe outlet behavior, so your installs are consistent, secure, and protected. Security is built into the PWR series so you can match your customer's IT policies. First, you can change administrator credentials right on the security page. So update the admin username and password as part of commissioning or handover. Second, use user authorization to create individual accounts with the permissions they need. So from read-only monitoring to full control of outlets, that keeps day-to-day operations safe while giving techs the access required to do their jobs. For enterprises, we support a Radius client, and you can choose PAP or CHAP, enable message authentication, point to your primary server, and align with existing identity management. Now, this lets the PDU participate in centralized login policies instead of living off to the side. And finally, you'll find session controls, like default session timeout and retry settings. So you can define how long a management session stays active and how the unit behaves on failed attempts. So here then we've got straightforward credential management, role-based user control, and Radius integration for IT environments, delivering secure, auditable access without slowing your team down. The maintenance tab here is your service hub. Now, at the top, you'll see system logs, a time-stamped record of configuration changes, power events, overload and warning states, and user interactions. Now, that audit trail is invaluable when you're investigating a power outage, validating who changed what, or documenting a site handover. You can view, clear, or export these logs directly from this page. For rapid rollouts, use the config export and import. Build one unit exactly the way you want it, so that's naming, sequencing, schedules, and protocols, then export that configuration and then import it into additional PDUs. Now, it keeps multiple racks consistent and saves a ton of commissioning time. Security lives here as well, and you can upload an SSL certificate, so the web-GUI presents your customer's trusted cert for encrypted HTTPS sessions, and that's clean for IT and easier for users who might otherwise see browser warnings. And finally, just below the fold on this page, you can update firmware, and that gives you a single place to apply new features, security patches, and performance improvements without touching every setting. So of course, the bottom line here is that you've got logs for accountability, config cloning for speed, SSL for secure access, and firmware updates. Everything you need to maintain PDUs efficiently and keep sites stable. And finally, last but not least, is the sensors tab. And here we can configure the 2 sensor ports on our 8 outlet PDUs. Now, these ports let you bring in third-party sensors, so temperature, humidity, air pressure, door tilt, and more, and use real-world conditions to drive power policy. Each sensor gets its own setup, a label, the protocol or type, and data address. You then define minimum and maximum thresholds and optional delays to avoid nuisance trips. When a threshold is crossed, the PDU executes per outlet actions that you choose. So that's power on, power off, restart, or no action. So that you can, for example, spin up cooling or shed non-critical loads or reboot a device after conditions normalize. Notifications are built in. For any sensor event, choose one or more alert channels. So that's email to your team, SNMP to your monitoring system, MQTT to automation workflows, and the onboard beeper for local awareness. The result is policy-based power control that's tied to the environment. Automatic responses that protect gear, reduce truck rolls, and keep systems stable. Configure the rules once, and the PDU enforces them 24/7. And so there we have it. I want to say that it was a brief look into the user interface, but again, since there are so many options, there's certainly a lot to cover. So now I'm going to go ahead and give a little sneak peek of a new function or feature really that we're working on for these PDUs, and that's really something that we're planning for releasing later this year. And here is that sneak peek at the feature in development. It's a Watchdog Auto Reboot, right? And here you'll be able to assign any of our PDUs to ping a device's IP address on your network, of course, if it responds to ping. Now, if that device stops responding, the PDU can automatically toggle the paired outlet to power cycle it, bringing the gear back online without a truck roll. Now, this isn't limited to things like just routers. Think satellite receivers, audio matrices, signage players, or any device that occasionally hangs or loses its network port. Instead of waiting for someone on site, the PDU handles the recovery and gets your system responsive again, especially valuable after hours. Now, we're targeting a firmware update toward the end of Q4 to add this across the products that you've seen here today. And as we finalize it, we'd love feedback on workflows that you want supported so we can make the Watchdog fit real-world service practices from day one. And this is, of course, bringing us to the end of this session. So thanks for spending time with us today. And if you'd like to dig deeper, head to the Blustream website. The product menus let you browse by technology, so you can jump straight to PDUs, AV over IP, extenders, and more. From the homepage, you can also download our 2025 solutions brochure for a snapshot of the full range. If you have a project in mind, email the tech team in your territory, and we're happy to review designs, answer configuration questions, or help with switch and power planning. You can also reach out to your authorized Blustream distribution partner or rep, and they'll guide you on availability, pricing, and best fit option. And for what's coming next, like the features we previewed today, follow us on social media to get the latest product announcements and firmware updates. So I want to appreciate your time on behalf of the Blustream team. Thank you, and we look forward to supporting you on your next install. And that, of course, then brings us to the end of today's session. So we're going to go ahead and then dive into some of the questions that you guys maybe have already prepared or sent over on to us that hopefully we were able to answer during the session. And if not, we can certainly take some questions here. And if not, and we don't hear you, thanks for joining us today. We'll certainly see you out there, hopefully, on today, and maybe in person out at an event, at a trade show, or on an install. So let's go ahead and dive into those questions and see what's going on.